You're watching Let the Quran Speak, and now we answer your questions. If you have a question, visit our website, QuranSpeaks.com. Dr. Shabir, the question is, I keep hearing things like Allah only burdens the people He loves. But why does that have to be the case? It makes people hesitant to get closer to Allah because they think He would put them through all these hardships. Why can't we be close to Allah and also live a great life?
Yeah, Safia, to be honest, the question has made me think. And, if I were to answer this, if I were to speak on this topic prior to getting the question, I would have said something probably different.
That's amazing.
Than what I'm going to say now. So my humble thoughts are that all people are afflicted with disasters, and they're also enjoying good times. So we get good times and bad times for both believers and non-believers. Now, for the believers, the difference is that this is not to be construed as a punishment from God, but or just simply an affliction, but it is an opportunity to rise higher. So the same event, it can have two different effects: one for the believer, one for the non-believer. Let's step back for a moment and imagine that there is no God. Okay, so the world will not be any different than it is now. Okay, it will be. We have disasters, we have calamities, and we also have good times. So when the calamity occurs, what do we do as human beings? We have no hope, no way of making sense of this. We're just in a godless world, and a cruel world that's afflicting us for we don't know what reason. Okay, now put God into the picture. Now for the believer, there is a reason why we get these disasters and calamities and afflictions and so on. For the believer, the exercise of patience, it brings reward from God. And turning to God in supplication brings more reward from God. So for the believer, the calamity is an opportunity to rise higher. And the believer can now see this as a test, to use the common parlance among believers for this. It is not that God says, okay, this is a believer in me, so let me afflict this believer. That would seem a little bit paradoxical. And hence the question arises out of that. Why does God pick out His believers to give them punishments? But it's the same kind of difficulties that occur for all people. But for the other people, it's just a meaningless sort of thing. Why me? Why did this happen to me? And they have no answer for that because God is not in their lives. It is the atheistic worldview. And for the believer, on the other hand, this is something that God is in full control of. God can take it away if He wants, but God leaves it with me for good reasons. And I should capitalize on those good reasons. And one good reason is that I will make dua, supplication to God to remove this affliction from me. I'll get reward for that. I will exercise patience and I will get reward for that. And so we find many statements within the Quran and in Hadith indicating that the believers get afflictions and that this is a test for them.
Even the prophets had these afflictions.
Even the prophets had them, yes.
And I think the important thing is that God doesn't promise us a good, happy life, right? God promises that, or God tells us that we need to strive in this life.
Exactly.
For the life hereafter.
Exactly. And of course, there will be happy times as well in this life, and that too is promised. But the ultimate happiness is for the life hereafter. So, Safia, I want to squeeze in here a couplet from the great philosopher, poet Iqbal from Pakistan, who said in translation, "O eagle, do not be afraid of the wind. It will not blow you over, but it will cause you to rise higher." So now if you think of the wind, powerful wind coming through, destroying things in its path, that wind, while destroying the properties of some people, and including the property of the believer, will cause the believer to rise higher. Because in the face of this destruction, the believer will get closer to God, will put more faith in God, whereas the disbeliever will cower down in disbelief and in rejection of God and questioning God and so on. So the same wind has two different effects among the people. So for believers, what is happening in terms of disasters in the world is really something that causes them to rise higher in terms of getting closer to God, in terms of their reward in the life hereafter. A hadith says in this reward, wonderful is the affair of the believer, such that if good things come to them, they give thanks to God and that's beneficial for them. Or if bad things happen to them, they put their patience in God and that too is beneficial to them. So it doesn't matter what happens, good or bad, to the believer. The believer is always capitalizing on that and rising higher.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
The most effective, the most far-reaching dawah we can do these days is on social media. At Muslim Media Hub, we're harnessing the power of media to spread the message of Islam. Want to get some reward from God? Support this mission. Check us out at muslimmediahub.com.